Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Tom is back. How was your vacation? Long pause.
All right. If you are a parent, I will say the next couple of words, and you will know everything that you need to know about this vacation. I spent $145 to have a mobile car detailer come out and clean the carpets of my car midway through the vacation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can guess.
It was, it wasn't quite a crucible, but it was an ordeal. It felt like a rite of passage of some sort. I did get to see many things in DC. I mean, you can't do DC in a week. You can't do DC with kids in a week. You can't do DC with a 7-year-old in tow in a year. They just can't handle more than 2 museums. After the second museum, They're like, that's it. You got to take me outside and let me run until my hair falls out or something. So it was fine. We did enough. I got to see some. It's very inspiring to be in DC. I have a very hard time understanding why our politicians know if I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. Why our politicians seem to hate the country so much that they can't get along and get some stuff done. I mean, I was there. I was like, have you read the inscription on the side of this building? The National Archives on the side of the building. It's like, we put this stuff here to prove that we have that democracy works and that it's going to be forever. And this is why we exist. I was like, oh, I said it better than that, but I was like, oh, that is so awesome. Every time I walked by, I read it again and went, oh, it's just amazing. And I mean, I went into the National Archive. I was sitting in the Supreme Court room, sitting there. And this lady was talking about all the stuff that, about Supreme Court things. And of course, it's not in session right now. That's why we get to go in there. But I was like, this is the room. This is where it happens. This is amazing. Yep. And, the Capitol was there, and we didn't listen there because we had food and children. Though the children weren't the problem, but we had the food because of the children. Therefore, children, ergo. Vis-a-vis. But yeah, I got to Lincoln Memorial. We did a bunch of stuff. So the only thing we didn't do is we didn't go to like the mall. That's what they call that whole area there, the mall.
Right, yes, yeah.
For the concert / fireworks. It had been raining off and on all day, and I didn't want to go, like, even a little bit. And the kids were like, can we just stay here and watch TV? I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Good parenting. It was fine. It was it was exhausting, and the drive, it was, I think all in all, I think we were in the car somewhere around 22 hours total between 2 days. But we did mostly like on the ride back, we did like 14 hours in one day and like 5.5. Well, 14 hours, and then like I guess something close to like 6 or 7 the second day. So whatever it was, maybe 8, I don't remember. But it was very hard. But it was worth it. We got to see some family, some Italian families. They're Turkish, and it was great spending time there with them and eating Turkish food made by. Yeah. My wife walked in the door and said, "Where's a good Turkish restaurant we could go to?" And they went, right here. What are you talking about?
Yes.
We're Turkish.
In our kitchen.
In our kitchen. It exists right here. I just had my head in my hands. I was like, I knew she was going to say it. I tried to tell her not to say it, but she said it anyways. And it was hilarious. It's like going to an Italian's house and going, where do I get some good Italian food? Like, what? So it was great. We had a great time. It was as relaxing as it could be, I suppose. So I'm glad to be back. I am very behind. Believe me, the fact that this podcast is not posted is not because I am a slacker. It's because I literally have had no time, like 0 time.
Yeah,
my
didn't
son
help having your power outage all of last night either.
Well, that was so crazy. I mean,
things.
We were eating dinner, and the power flickered, and I looked out the back window, and I saw explosion and fire. I was like, well, that's not good. And then the power went out, and our neighbor posted on Facebook, there's a power line down in my backyard. There's a fire. The the fire department just drove by. They did not stop.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Like,
Which means it's even worse somewhere else.
yeah. So we got back on about 9:45 last night. So I guess we could have done the podcast if we really wanted to, but it was like 100,000 degrees in here by then. So yeah, it was fine. It was fine, but it did. And then my son turned 14 today. So
Happy
we did.
birthday.
We did the whole rite of passage thing. We took him shoe shopping, of course, because that's what you do. We got him some ice cream, and we took him down to the local supermarket to apply for a job. Because at 14 around here, you can get a job. And what that means is you getting a job, Haas. You got to get a job. Get out of my house and start earning some money. Stop asking me for phones. Buy your own. So, yes, very exciting. We'll talk. I'm sure more of this will come up as we go along, but let's get into this podcast. We do have a lot of questions. I'd like to get it started. So, this is the AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You come to www.avrant.com. Leave a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/C/AVRant, where you can see your question answered by our smiling mugs.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can see Rob meltdown because the podcast video is going poorly. That was a good one.
Doing okay so far.
So far, it's okay.
Lee and I muddled through last week, and thanks once again to Lee Overstreet for filling in while
Yes.
Tom was away. We appreciate that. Thank you, Lee.
That's right. If you want to contact us directly, you can contact Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I am Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. We have our producer, Austin. You can reach him at Austin, TEN, Pond. I sent him an email today, almost misspelled his name. I was like, are you joking? You say it like every week. And I still put an I in Austin. But yeah, Austin Pond has his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast about actually watching fireworks on TV and which is the best fireworks display to watch on TV. And they do critiques and ratings and stuff.
He must be all about that high dynamic range with fireworks.
You would think.
One would think.
You would think. I don't know. I think he's still rocking a CRT, to be honest with you. But what are you going to do? Not the highest quality podcast. If you donate to their podcast, they will use it to buy a bottle rocket. So let's thank our listeners of the week. To start off with, we're going to thank John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, and Bob. They went to www.avrant.com and clicked on the Buy Us a Coffee link and gave us a PayPal donation. Those donations go into our coffers to help pay for fun podcast hosting and other things that come up along the way. Like I'm going to have to pay for this Reaper program eventually if I decide to keep it. I don't know if I will or not, but so far I like it. It is different, and I think I will like it more the more I know about it. I've had no time to do it. But anyways, thank you, John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob.
Yes, John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob, thank you all so much for those donations. And there is a chance that between, I was just going off people who said that they donated last week, and Tom just quickly looked up the PayPal donations before we started this episode. So there's a chance someone slipped through the cracks that we might have missed someone's name. If you donated and you didn't hear your name last week or this week, please let us know, because we are not intentionally leaving anybody out. It's possible that someone got missed. So
and we've got so many this week because it's basically been almost 3 weeks of donations that we've missed here. So, yeah, guys, thank you very much for the donations, and we really appreciate it. We also want to thank Bob again. He says we missed his note to us from a while back when he mentioned us to Accessories for Less when buying his Denon AVR X1200W receiver. He thinks it makes sense to donate to AVRant because he thinks of it as a tip or a consultation fee. I tried to say that really weird. I don't know what I was trying to say. Anyways, he says we've saved him money, but also a lot of time. Plus, he feels a lot more confident in his purchases, which is great. So, so that's worth a tip to us. So thank you, Bob. And Nathan let Rhythmic know that we recommended their subwoofers to him. It's not exactly the same as his buying one yet, but I'm sure they appreciate knowing that they exist.
Oh, it's coming. It's a coming.
Oh, I know it is. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, Bob, Nathan, congratulations on those purchases. Thank you for mentioning us to those companies. That helps a lot, and I'm sure you'll like both of those products. Good stuff again. So it
Now,
should be
I
good.
know, guys, I normally talk fast. I'm going to really talk fast because this news is stupid long. So I'm going to read this as fast as I can so that we can get to the questions. The Denon UK and Marantz UK websites have posted explicit details about which AV receiver models will support Dolby Vision and HLG pass-through. Got it right that time. The Denon UK website very clearly states that the X1300, 2300, 3300, 4300, 6300, and 7200 WA will be issued a firmware update to add Dolby Vision and HLG support, 2 in a row. They also say that all of the new X blank 400 H models will support Dolby Vision out of the box and get an HLG via firmware later. Update later. Similarly, the UK, Marantz UK clearly states that the NR 1607, the SR 5011, 6011, 7011, and AV 7703, and AV 8802A, which is our flagship things, will all get Dolby Vision and HLG 3 times in a row firmware updates. Also of note, 2015 models are explicitly mentioned as having HDR10 support, but they are definitely not included in the list of models that will get the updates. So it seems pretty clear that the X blank 200 and the SR blank 10 owners are out of luck.
Yeah.
And
That's me. That includes me.
Yeah, and the US websites still aren't updated yet. So there you go. We'll put a link on our website that shows you all that
we'll
stuff.
have links to those. But that is the most clear things were listed out model by model. It doesn't get much more explicit than that.
Right.
So I think that's the news. It would be weird if the US was different than the UK.
Between you saying explicit and me saying explicit because it's written down so many times, and me thinking like that there's somebody's taking the top off of a receiver. This up over here at the very top, we started this thing off with John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob, right? And I keep wanting to say John, Jacob, Jingle, Hyperschmidt. It's like stuck in my head now. I can't not say it. So John, Jason, Jingle, Hyper, whatever. Okay. James Gunn did it. He convinced Disney to release Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as Disney's first Ultra HD Blu-ray title. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been waiting for Disney. They're the last major studio to announce support for Ultra HD Blu-ray. It took one of their directors like hammering the executives over the head until they agreed. It'll get a 3D Blu-ray release as well. So, yay, whatever format you want, it's actually going to happen. Hopefully this leads to more Ultra HD Blu-ray titles. I can tell everyone, go out and buy this on Ultra HD Blu-ray because it's a very good movie. So you're not gonna be upset at having bought this as an Ultra HD Blu-ray, and that way they'll see a nice sales spike and hopefully bring out all the rest. That would be nice for Disney to do.
Yes. All right, got some comments. Really? Gotta read all this? Whatever. Okay. Infinite Gary. Last week, Rob and Lee discussed Gary's somewhat unusual turntable setup in which he was using a less common high output moving coil cartridge rather than a more common low output moving coil design. The instructions for Gary's high output cartridge to say to connect it to your phono playback system is still a typical movie magnet cartridge with 47 kilo ohm input impedance and a 2.5 millivolt.
Yep, millivolt
of input voltage. Because of those instructions, we said it should be absolutely fine to connect this turntable directly to the phono input of a Marantz AV receiver. I mean, that's what literally it said. Yep. Or if he decides to keep using his tube preamp, he should set that preamp as though he was using a moving magnet cartridge rather than a low output moving coil cartridge. Anyways, Gary tried it, connected it directly to the Marantz phono input, found that we had less distortion in passing the signal through the tube preamp. Shocking everybody, I'm sure. However, the various input impedance settings on the tube preamp are adjusted by manually plugging in a jumper, so he's 100% sure it is set correctly. Probably is, and if it's not, tubes
Well, the correct setting ought to be no jumpers installed.
No, there you go.
That is what it should be. According to everything that was in the manuals for both that particular cartridge and for that tube preamp, the correct setting on the tube preamp is no jumpers. So.
So Gary and Carl, I don't know if this is different Gary or same Gary, probably the same one. We're both curious of what we think of director Christopher Nolan's decision to shoot 75% of the upcoming movie Dunkirk using IMAX 65mm film and the other 25% using large format 65mm film, no digital photography at all. Will either of us get to watch the movie in full 1.43 to 1 IMAX aspect ratio? And what do we think will happen regarding the aspect ratio when the movie is released on Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray? Well, I think it'll be a lot like when he shot some things in IMAX and some things in 2. Or whatever it was, 2.35 to 1, I think, right?
Yeah.
For the Dark Knight, whichever one it was, the Rise. No, whatever, The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises
Right.
both
So
had IMAX portions.
It's going to be fun. Now, I've got no problem with him filming on film, honestly. I mean, he's going to be converted to digital eventually anyways.
Oh, yes.
So film is fine. I mean, if that's what he wants to... I don't care. I mean, will I see it in the theater? Absolutely not. There's zero chance. There is zero chance that I'm going to see this movie. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic film. I'm not really into war films. Just in general, so this is that Dunkirk is that war film, right?
Dunkirk, that's right.
I saw the previews. I'm like, oh, that looks like it's gonna be a really good movie. I'm totally not gonna see it. I may see it. I may see it. Like I may rent it, or if it shows up on Netflix, I may watch it. I probably won't. I don't think that makes me a bad person. It's just I just don't tend to like war movies all that much. I'm sorry. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, the filming on film, I don't know. I mean, if that's where he's most comfortable, if that's what his cinematographer likes to work with, if that's what his lighting crew likes to work with, then you go for it because, hey, I mean, movies cost $1 gazillion no matter what you do these days.
Yeah.
Let it fly. That's fine. He's one director who can handle all that. I was very pleased to see that they released a format guide which is showing the differences. So you've got this 1.43 to 1 aspect ratio, which is for if you actually have an IMAX 70 millimeter film, theater that you can go to. I am very pleased to say that, so first of all, we have 2 IMAX theaters in the Lower Mainland area of Vancouver. They were built back before the digital format existed. So they are
the big screens, yeah.
They have the 1.43 to 1 squarish looking type screen. They have that screen. However, for the past while, they've been using the digital projectors. And it's interesting, on that format guide, they list that as IMAX Xenon. So they've actually got a name for it.
Okay.
And that is using the dual digital projectors, and they have a 1.89 to 1 aspect ratio. So they're actually a little bit wider than HD TV.
Okay.
And that's what the digital ones have. So that's what we've been seeing in those theaters, even though they have the taller screen, physical taller screen. That's the aspect ratio I've been seeing for the past while. Well, looked it up. One of the theaters is using still that digital format, so it'll be the IMAX Xenon format in here, 1.89 to 1. But the other one, which is the older one, they still have a film projector. They will be showing it in the full 70 millimeter film with the 1.43 to 1 aspect ratio. I bought my tickets. I want to see that.
Are they going to crop it? Is that what they're going to do? They're going to crop for this other stuff? It's just going to overshoot.
So for the 25% that's in 70 millimeter, that was shot at a 2.2 to 1 aspect ratio. That's how it was shot on big 70 millimeter film, but it was shot in that widescreen. So yeah, they'll be switching aspect ratios back and forth between 1.43 to 1 and 2.2 to 1. But yeah, I'll get to see it in the full IMAX thing. So I'm looking forward to that. There is IMAX or IMAX with laser. That's their current sort of flagship. That it's venue dependent. Some of the venues have chosen to go for the full 1.43 to 1 screen. Some of the venues have chosen to go for the 1.89 to 1 screen. It's up to the venue, but IMAX with laser can support both. We don't have IMAX with laser where I am yet, but yeah. I'll be able to see either
I know
way.
we have a couple of IMAX screens around here. Because I'm not going to go see it. Anyways, I'm sure it'll be fine. Bob in the Philippines just wanted to share his garage setup since that's where he usually listens to us. He downloads episodes onto his iPad and then plugs it into a Marshall Woburn amp that offers clear, full-sounding audio from its 2 tweeters and 2 woofers. Out of the many iPod docks he's tried, none have compared to the sound quality of his Marshall. Working in his garage is another benefit. He lives next to a restaurant, and he has agreement with them. He sends them a text message, beer for Bob, and they know where to bring it. That's kind of nice.
Yep, that's pretty good.
So this is he's basically just got this thing plugged into his headphone output of his iPad, and it goes into this little Marshall amplifier, and I'm sure it's also quite a bit bigger than any iPod dock he might have really tried this thing with, but that's fantastic. It looks like a nice little garage setup. I love it.
Yeah, Marshall does have like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi speakers and that. And actually, our good friend Paul McDonald, you got to say it, Tom. You haven't talked about Paul in a while.
He's been very angry on Facebook recently, I have to say. He's very mad at his cellular person because his data is all getting all used up, and I haven't heard much about his racing. I have seen some pictures, but they look old from his daughter racing, so I'm not really sure what's going on with him. I haven't not talked about him because I don't love him. I think he's a great guy. I
was waiting for the Paul is a race car driver.
Paul is a race car driver. He used to be our race car driver. He used to be our racer. That was a good that I swear that made my whole year when you sent me that picture with the sticker on the back of that car. I was like, oh, yes. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead. Yes.
Anyway, point being, he uses a Marshall Bluetooth setup, and he's very happy with that. Same thing. Listened to a lot of them, found the Marshall to be the best. So that's 2 people. So hey, might be worth checking out.
I feel like this is a vintage thing though. That doesn't look is new. It's not.
Yeah, this one here does from Bob. This one doesn't look like it's a Bluetooth type of thing
no, that doesn't.
going on. But yeah, regardless, quality stuff.
Larry says it appears as though SVS has updated their WiGo Dual for a subwoofer article on their website, and the order for their recommended placement locations has changed, and they now list opposite diagonal front rear corners at the midpoints of the side walls, front stage in the corners, and front stage flanking the center channel to the inside of the main speakers. While the first 2 options are proven performers with typically excellent results, they are often difficult to implement in a living/family room environment. All rooms are different, so we recommend staying flexible and trying all possible placement options for the best results. He asks, was that our doing? And I'm going to say, yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was solely our doing, but it couldn't have hurt.
We brought it up.
We brought it up. It was
we
mentioned.
said it to the,
we
said it to the
agreed
CEO.
with them, just not the order, and now the order has changed. So maybe.
I'm going with yes. I'm going to go with yes. I'm taking it on faith that it's 100% our fault. Nobody else gets any credit. We claim credit first. We put our flag in it. It's like landing on the moon.
I think we might have some credit in that. That wouldn't be a super duper stretch to think that's possible. So yeah.
All right, from last week. I thought you guys would have finished everything, so I didn't have to. Anyways, all right, Ted. For Ted's small theater room, we suggested a 5.2.4 Atmos configuration. He asks, what receiver would we recommend for that? I would recommend the Marantz or the Denon that has the best Odyssey, but is like the cheapest one of them because you don't need that many speakers. You just got to make sure it can do 5.2.4, which I think most of them could. But the cheapest one that has the number of amps that you actually need, okay, the processing power that you absolutely need, which means you can do all of those 9 channels.
Yes,
right? 9 channels, and then the best Odyssey. So whatever that is. What is that?
That would be the Marantz SR6011 if you're buying right now.
Right.
Which is $900 at Accessories for Less most of the time. That's a pretty good deal. If, for some reason, you really, really want the ability to add Oro 3D and or Hios, because the SR6011 can't do Oro 3D and it doesn't have Hios built in. There is the X4300H from Denon. Okay. That's the comparable model there. Plus, on the X4300H, get the full front display. The SR6011 only has the little porthole display. Right. And then you're looking at, I think, $1,100 right now, $1,100 or $1,200.
So there's no 7 channels. These are both 9 channel amps, right?
Yeah, those both have 9 amps built in. They actually can be expanded to 11 speakers, but they have 9 amps built in.
There's any that are 7 amps built in that can be expanded to 9?
That can be expanded to 9, not until you go back so old that it doesn't support DTS-X or Dolby Vision.
All right, then that's what you want. Yep.
So these are the ones, there's no reason to go above those. You don't need any features beyond that. So either of those 2, depending on what you need and want.
All right, he talked to Gene over at Audioholics, and given his legacy audio on-wall speakers capabilities, Gene suggested a 200 watt per channel external amplifier to minimize the distortion and maximize the dynamics and headroom. Any thoughts on that and any recommendations? His room is not super big. I don't know.
His room is downright small. Those speakers are big.
Yeah, okay. Now, objectively, Gene is almost certainly correct that if you want to use these
max
speakers,
them out.
If you want to use these speakers to their capabilities, you should get an amplifier. You are not in any conceivable way using these speakers to their capabilities. I mean, they are just you are riding a Ferrari down the street at like 35 miles an hour. All right. Yeah. That Ferrari has got all the headroom you need. You do not need to put a turbocharger on it. You don't need to, you don't need to add a bigger engine to it, just in case. And that's kind of what he's suggesting here. So I don't think that you need to do this at all.
Right.
I think you can save the money.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the maximum amount of power you might be using out of your speakers will be 20 watts per channel. That's no exaggeration.
I know.
Really,
I know.
that is the maximum amount of power you're going to be using in your setup. Given your seating distance and the efficiency of your speakers, 20 watts per channel is as much as you will. I mean, your ears will be absolutely screaming if you go beyond that. So you don't need the 200 watts per channel at all in terms of the headroom. Interestingly, it's the opposite direction where possibly an external amp might have a benefit because you're sitting so close. These speakers are quite efficient. They have these very, very sensitive folded ribbon tweeters.
Yeah.
And if you connect all 9 of your speakers to an AV receiver, the noise floor does go up a little bit. I mean, that's been consistent. I've had that experience. Everyone who's written in to talk about it has had that. It's not like it gets horrible. As soon as something starts playing, you don't notice the tiny hiss. But I know Ted is a picky person, and we love being picky. I'm the same way. So it's possible that it's the noise floor where you might get some benefit. Now, I would point you right over to one of the Emotiva Bass X amps because you only need, I mean, honestly, you could just offload 2 of the channels and
your mains.
Absolutely enough. If you want to go nuts, if you like, because this is Ted, we know Ted wants to go nuts, right?
He's looking for an excuse to spend some money. Dude's got.
If you want to go nuts, you can get both. You can get both 200 watts per channel and a shockingly low noise floor by getting a monolith amplifier from Monoprice.
Those aren't that expensive. They're pretty pricey. But
no, like
that
$1,100 gets you the 3-channel version.
That's like
right?
a full receiver, though. I mean,
it's
like
huge.
It's
no,
I'm not
huge
just talking.
and
I'm talking
heavy.
about the price too. You can get a brand new receiver from Accessories for Less for the exact same price.
Right.
So,
but I mean, if you want to go for it and you want to make sure that you will never hear a hiss coming from your front 3 speakers, and if you want to blast the door that never closes, if you still want to blast it off its hinges with pure sound, then go ahead, get a Monoprice monolith. I won't stop you. I mean, hey, I bought an ATI amp. I sure as heck don't need it. So there you go.
Yeah, we know how close you sit to your speakers.
That's right.
All right, he says his front 3 speakers are legacy audio silhouettes. We know this. His current surround speakers are DefTech Pro Cinema 1000s. How well will the SVS Prime elevation speakers work with these if you were to buy those for Atmos duties?
Yeah, because we suggested that might be a good choice because they have that angled thing, put them high up on the front wall.
They will work just fine. They will.
Yeah, they're quite neutral, right?
They are very, very neutral. They're very neutral. They blend just perfectly in with my speakers, which are very neutral speakers, and therefore they must be also very neutral.
Yeah, and I want to assure Ted that I really do feel strongly that they would be absolutely fine because you know how picky I have been. You know how the ridiculous lengths I have gone to for timbre matching, yeah? I went from the Sierra 1 NRT speakers to the Sierra 2s. I upgraded all of my Sierra 1 NRTs at the same time to Sierra 2s, including my height channels, right? It made no difference. Yeah. And this is me. This is me who was like, I am going to custom order some Sierra speakers that use the same larger ribbon tweeter as the towers. I'm going to do that just so I, even if I can't hear it, just so I know it's a perfect
psychologically, I know.
Exactly. I am telling you that in the height channels, it made no difference. Yeah. So that's me. That's how picky I am. I assure you those will be fine.
Yeah. This is now Mark. Mark says after living with his RBH Impression series towers for a few months now, he'd like to measure their frequency response to get a better idea of how they're performing in his room. Now, I mean, you can go online and find anechoic measurements of these speakers or, those sorts of things. But he wants to know how they're doing in his room. So he downloaded Room EQ Wizard, but he finds it a little bit complicated to use. Is there an easy tutorial we can recommend for him to follow? I don't know where that I came from. We can recommend for him to follow. Or is there maybe a simpler piece of software that we recommend instead of REW, Room EQ Wizard? Well, the simpler does, as far as I know, does not really exist that I can.
I mean, you could just do it all on your phone. That you could.
What microphone are you gonna use for that? I mean,
well, you'd get that Dayton IMM6, from Parts Express, and then right there they recommend what app to use with that microphone. But I mean, you wouldn't. I don't. Well, I guess you could screen capture it, right? Instead of printing, you just screen capture it.
I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean that. Yeah, I mean, he's saying, is there an alternative? There is that.
But there's lots of guides out there
throwing
from
out there.
Rubik's Wizard, and it's really,
Yeah.
it's the learning curve on that thing is not that steep. It is a little, when you first look at it, there's buttons everywhere and stuff like that.
And there's tons of options.
You
Yeah.
will literally use, after you get the settings correct, you will use like 2 buttons, 2 things on that thing. You know, maybe not literally, but it will be, you will do very, very little. So I would highly recommend just there's got to be a video out there that takes you through it.
Yeah. So Glenn, I think it's Kuros you pronounce. I'm not sure
No.
exactly how to pronounce his last name, but from GIK Acoustics, from Gick Acoustics.
Right.
He put out a tutorial. Now, he was primarily in this tutorial focusing on the bass, which makes sense because
Sure.
most of the time people are looking to measure and adapt their bass both by adding bass traps and by using, an external EQ like the mini DSP. However, it's still applicable because when he's showing you how to set the limits of what frequencies you're looking at, if you want to look at the mid-range and treble instead of the bass, it's simple enough. The same method applies. You just plug in different numbers. So I think that tutorial will give you a nice start. It shows you how to first make sure that you are calibrated. I guess that's the right word. I mean, calibrated in the sense that your mic is showing correct levels on the screen.
Right.
And then how to set up your basic frequency response graph and your waterfall graph.
I
Shows
will be
you how to
honest
do
with
those.
you. I
That's
believe
where you start.
that when I first started using Rubik's Wizard, I watched that video.
Yeah, probably.
I think
it's been out there a while.
I think that's how I learned it. And
Yeah.
believe me, I every time I use Rubik's Wizard, I have to go back and relearn it because I use it so infrequently. So
Right.
you can do it. You can do it, dude.
Oh yeah. I mean that tutorial video combined with Rumikyu Wizard's own help section on their website, because it's actually really well written. That help section, and it's obviously it takes time. It's a long, lengthy thing to read through, but if you read through it, the information is all there and it's nicely written. It doesn't go super technical or mathematical or something like that. It can be followed. So between those two things, I think that's the way to go.
Okay. All right, let's get to the questions from this week. We have Earl. So Earl's first question is fairly straightforward. As he mentioned previously, he purchased a Macintosh MX 122 Pre-Pro and a 7-channel MC8207 amplifier. For movies, he really likes the results provided by having Odyssey Multi-QXT 32 active and using the crossover settings that were assigned during the automatic setup. But for music, he prefers to have Odyssey turned off and to use different crossover settings that he has chosen manually. All right. So having Odyssey on for movies and off for music is easy enough. This can actually be assigned per input, and then the on or off setting is remembered by the MX 122. So he simply uses the cable TV and Blu-ray HDMI inputs for movies and TV, and then he uses the stereo analog XLR inputs assigned as the aux input for his 2-channel music. For multi-channel music, he could use a 7.1 analog inputs, or he could assign a different HDMI input. Since this Oppo UDP205 Ultra HD Blu-ray player offers both 7.1 analog and 2 HDMI inputs. So his question is, can he have one set of crossover settings that he uses for movies and a second different set of crossover settings that he uses for 2-channel and multi-channel music? I want to say no. But I that's what I want to say. I didn't bother researching it because I knew Rob would already know the answer by the time I got this question, which was like 5 minutes ago. But actually, it was yesterday. I actually did all my research yesterday. I want to say no. I don't know that you can do that.
So the answer is kind of yes, but definitely not in the way you would think.
Oh, God. That's going to be a convoluted thing.
Right. So if you were thinking, can I have one set of crossovers for an Odyssey calibration and then hit a button and switch to a different set?
Yes.
The answer is no.
Right.
That cannot be done. So for your movies, if you're happy with what it did for movies, okay, that's your Odyssey setting. Those are the crossovers you're using. There you go. Bob's your uncle for movies. You're done. For 2-channel music, specifically 2-channel only, if you use the stereo listening mode.
Oh, yeah, that does have separate. Yes, that is true.
You can set a separate setting for that. You can set
But that's the only
crossovers,
one, though, right? I mean, you can't
only
do it.
specifically for 2-channel in the stereo listening mode. That's all it applies to.
Because there's like a menu for that in the Deadens these days.
When
so
you go in there,
menu.
yeah, you go into the settings, you go into the speaker settings, you go into the manual speaker settings, and at the very bottom there is a separate 2-channel section. So in there you could, like for example, Odyssey has set your front speakers to small. You can manually set them to large for only 2-channel. if you want to do that. You can set different crossovers. So that is one way you can do it specifically for the 2-channel. That should work because he's got those on a separate input using analog 2-channel connections.
Right.
That should work for your 2-channel. Now, for your multi-channel music, now there's 2 problems with that. Number one, if you have a 2-channel signal coming in, but then you use Dolby Surround, DTS Neural X, Oro 2D or 3D upmixing, any upmixing, as soon as you go to a different listening mode other than stereo, now that separate setting doesn't apply. Right? So that's the problem there. So the other side of it is you have those 7.1 analog outputs coming out of your UDP 205. And part of the reason of paying so much extra for the 205 is that it has really good analog circuitry.
Right.
So for multi-channel music, like multi-channel super audio CDs or multi-channel DVD audio discs, that of course it can play, you could use the analog outputs, right? 6 cables going from the analog outputs of the 205 to the analog inputs of your Macintosh. And that way, because the Macintosh doesn't apply any processing to the analog inputs, the 7.1 analog inputs doesn't apply any processing there, you can do all the setup in the Oppo.
That's another way to do it. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
The Oppo lets you set crossover settings in there, and this isn't a problem because you're only going to use the 7.1 analog for music. When you're watching movies, you're going to go back to the regular HDMI output. So, like I say, you can do this. It's just not the way you would think. It's not being done really in your AV receiver. It's, for multi-channel music, it's being done inside the Oppo. And there's your workaround for I don't know. You'd still be, if you're sending it out as 2-channel, because I don't think the Oppo upmixes music.
No, it wouldn't. I don't think it does either. I mean, I haven't known any DVD player or Blu-ray player that's done that. I mean, they expect you're going to do that at the receiver level. So you wouldn't be able to take a 2-channel.
You can't take 2-channel from the 7.1 analog ins and upmix it because it would have to digitize it, and it doesn't digitize it.
That's right.
Okay, so the one thing you can't do is upmix 2-channel
to something else. Have the different crossover.
Which might end up being the only thing he wants to do. In which case the answer is no, unfortunately. But we've given you all these other options, so there are ways to have
a lot of stuff you can do, just not maybe the thing you want to do.
Yeah, different crossovers for 5.1 coming out of the Oppo, but not for upmixing. There.
Earl uses 6 subwoofers, but only one of those subwoofers is connected to the subwoofer output of his receiver or processor. The other 5 subwoofers are connected to the front, left, right, centers, and surround left and right pre-outs and are used to extend the frequency response of his front, center, and surround speakers. His front, left, and right speakers are Martin Logan Aeon electrostatic towers, and he pairs those with a pair of Martin Logan Dynamo subwoofers. The auto setup sets these channels to 40 hertz. His center channel is a Martin Logan Cinema that he's paired with the Mirage BPS 150 subwoofer. I don't know what that one is. And it has dual 8-inch drivers. Auto setups this channel to 40 hertz as well. He uses 2 pairs of side surround speakers, one set of Mirage OMR2 omnipolar speakers that are wired in parallel with a pair of Bose Cubes.
I knew.
What?
I don't know, man.
That's really weird. Anyways, do they match? Like, are they the impedance in any way, shape, or form going to be?
They don't match in any way, man. But that's
all right. Each surround channel is also connected to a Mirage FRX subwoofer. Another one I don't know. Auto setup on the surround channel sets it to 120 hertz. Are you sure it's a subwoofer?
I've got an explanation for that.
All right, you're going to have to. He uses a pair of Bose Cubes as surround back speakers. All this up sets those to 250 hertz. That one, I believe.
Yeah.
His main subwoofer, the only one connected to the pre-pro subwoofer's output, is a Mirage BPS 400 that has dual 12-inch drivers. As he said before, he likes the way all this sounds for movies. But for music so far, it has been his preference to turn Odyssey off and to set all of his speaker channels to 80 hertz crossover setting. All of the speakers channels seem to sound much more even and balanced this way. So what are our thoughts on how his crossovers ought to be set? I think you should set everything to 80 hertz all the time. I think listening to Odyssey, or it's not really even Odyssey, listening to your receiver, which is really Marantz, tell you where to set your crossover. No, don't do that. Now, yes, technically, these speakers can now play lower than they would before, but I think you should set everything to 80 and start there, and then whenever somebody tells me something sounds good for, they have something good and it sounds okay, it sounds great for movies, but it doesn't sound as good for music, and then a different way sounds good for music, I'm like, take what you did for the music and do it to the the movies, because the music is much harder to make it sound good because you're hearing much more of the frequency range all at the same time. Whereas the movies, you're hearing a little bit here, a little bit there, and a lot of it lives in like specific little regions. Like the vocal region, there's a little bit of background music, which isn't that loud, doesn't come over the top all that often, and there's a bunch of explosions. Okay, that's not all of it at the same time. It's much harder to do the music. Whenever somebody says this subwoofer is good for movies, they are insulting the subwoofer. Okay, when you say I have a good settings for movies, you are insulting those settings. You should use whatever settings you have for your music should be used for your movies as well.
Right.
Come back to us after you've tried that.
Yeah, so in overall, that is what I absolutely agree with. If this is what sounds best for music, then keep that. Use that for movies too. I will say Odyssey does have more than one target curve. I'm not sure if you've tried.
Right,
it
the
gives
flat
you three,
or the whatever it is.
The Odyssey reference curve, the Odyssey flat curve, because weird to call flat a curve, but it's a target curve, flat, and they do offer the left-right bypass on this model as well, which I wouldn't recommend using. But try both flat and reference, because that might make some difference to you. But I'm going to go beyond that a little bit here, because it seems like he got caught in the notion of all your speakers should be full range.
Yes.
And I don't blame you, because that advice is out there.
It is.
There are people that I respect a lot who are saying that advice.
All the time.
So it's easy to get caught in that. And of course, conceptually, it seems like it makes sense until you get into the way that waves work in a small room, sound waves work in a small room, and then it doesn't make any sense anymore. And that's what we've been talking about on this podcast a lot. So this is fine. The concept was fine. I just don't think that this is the best application. Now, where it does make some sense to have an additional powered woofer beyond just having the speakers and then having them cross over to just a pair or quad subs that are all working in mono, all those subs working in mono, is for those Bose Cubes, because it's set it at 250 hertz and it doesn't even play down to that.
No,
I mean, that's the highest setting that's allowed.
That's right. That's as high as it goes.
It would have set it higher if it could have. That's as high as it goes. Now, we see this because he has these Mirage speakers. Now, those Mirage speakers play down to about 100 hertz. It's about where they play down to.
Okay.
And he has those paired with the Bose, and then he has all of that paired with a subwoofer, and yet it's still auto set it to 120. And you're like, how could it? I mean, with a subwoofer, shouldn't it have set it at least to 60 or 40 or something? No, because it's looking for where is the minus 6 dB point.
Yeah.
And the minus 6 dB point happened at 120 because those Bose things aren't playing anything below about 350. Yeah. And those Mirage are rolling off as well. So there's this big gap. There's this big dip in your frequency response right now. And that's how you ended up with 120 hertz crossover, even though you have a subwoofer attached to those surround channels. My honest advice to you, truly, this is what I would do if I were in your situation. I would sell, if you can, all the Bose speakers, those Mirage Omni speakers, and all your subwoofers. I'd sell them all. I would go and get some Focal birds, because, I mean, if you need small to go on the wall, I'm assuming the Bose Cubes and those Mirage Omni speakers, that the small size was a benefit. So I'd go over to Accessories for Less. I'd get myself some Focal bird speakers, because they're nice and small, but they sound way better and they play far lower. And then I would get 2 really good subwoofers. Or you know what? That Mirage that he has, that dual 12-inch, it's a powerful, beefy sub. That might be perfectly fine. But pair that up with one other sub that can play just as low as that. You've got Multi-Q XT32 with sub EQ EHT, setting up dual subs that can both play down to 20 or 18 hertz like your Mirage can. That'll be a piece of cake. They'll be playing together. All your speakers will play down to 80. You set everything to 80, you're done. Like, honestly, that's the simpler solution. Now, I know that might sound discouraging because I'm saying replace a bunch of stuff, but for what you could get selling your equipment, those Focal birds aren't very expensive. So that's what I would do.
I thought those dynamos were pretty good subs. I didn't look them up.
Oh, but he's got the smaller dynamos, because I mean, if auto setup set those to 40,
right? I
mean, that could be room stuff, because that could be the case. But there's also the smaller dynamos that do only extend to about 35 hertz or so.
Right.
So I'm assuming those are the ones that he has. Yeah.
Right. Because the Martin Logan subwoofers are pretty. They've been pretty impressive. The bigger ones that I've seen.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, if you sold all your subwoofers and all your surround speakers, you could afford to get 4 of the Focal Birds and 1 more sub that is equal in extension to the big Mirage that you have.
He might want 6 speakers, so he might still want to have 2 speakers on each of the side walls. He may have a room that makes that necessary. We haven't seen a picture of it.
Oh,
right?
I see. Right. Well, then you get 6 of the birds.
Yeah, you're gonna get 6 of the birds and then 2 good subs. Or keep, like you said, keep. I can get behind that 100%. I didn't really look up the different subs because there were so many of them and I didn't care. But the reality is, you are doing a lot of stuff in order to try and make these speakers play lower. And it'd just be a lot easier to get speakers that play lower and then cross them all over. I think that you are honestly going to be shocked at how much clearer your system will sound when you don't have a bunch of subwoofers playing all over the place doing all kind of weird
it's
stuff.
not just a whole bunch of subwoofers; it's that they're playing individually.
Well, they're all
together.
being rolled, cut off at no.
Yeah.
I
mean, one of the subs is being cut off at 120. It probably hasn't even begun to start playing.
I don't think it played.
You know?
I don't think that sub's just sitting there going, dude, are you going to send me a single or what? What are you doing?
Well, I mean, it got a signal. It's just there was a big dip before it, so it got cut off beforehand, you know?
So, I mean, it's very, I understand what you were doing here. I do. But I think Rob is right.
Get it.
I think Rob is right. I think that get yourself some nice, good quality, and I mean, you can look at the NHT speakers they have too.
Yeah,
those are little. If you like cubes, those are great little cubes. They're going to play down to about 100 hertz or something like that. I don't really remember what it is. 80 hertz. They'll get down there, and you might have to cross them over a little bit higher. 2 good subs. Boom, Bob's your uncle. You're going to realize your entire system sounds better. That's what we feel.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. We could be wrong. Believe me, I bet the farm that we were right, but it could. I think that you're going to find yourself much happier this way. Give it a thought. At the very least, set all your crossovers to 80 hertz and never look back.
And watch movies that way. Yeah.
Well, and do everything that way. Yes.
Also, even if that's where you stop, that solves your whole needing 2 different crossover settings issue from the first part.
Yeah, I agree. Jason says, first up, back in September 2015, we gave him some advice regarding his home theater build. We told him that he had to have HVAC. We suggested using a drop ceiling, and we gave him some soundproofing and speaker and subwoofer recommendations. That sounds like us. He put all of that advice to good use, and he wound up selecting Ascend Acoustic Sierra 1 front speakers. Rob won that one. HGM 200 SC surrounds and surround backs, plus dual SVS PC 2000 cylinder subs. I believe that was my suggestion. Beyond the equipment, his room came together extremely well, so we shared a picture of the results, and if you're watching our YouTube channel, you are seeing that right now, and his theater looks amazing.
Yes, and for anyone says that a drop ceiling always has to be ugly, that's not an ugly ceiling.
Dude,
that is a nice theater-looking ceiling.
Theaters have drop ceilings. I hate to break it to you. When you go to the theater, that's when you're counting the tiles. There are drop ceilings in there. It's just like a home. This place looks great. This place
looks nice. I would very much like to watch a movie in there. I think I'd be quite happy.
Too. I don't know who put I don't know if that's a beer on the sub or a remote control, but either way,
that's That's a Harmony remote.
I would like to grab that. All right. So anyways, he needed a 25-foot HDMI cable to reach from his AV receiver to his projector. He opted for the Lux series in-wall rated active high-speed cable for mono price. The website says that the series will pass 18 gigabits per second up to the 50-foot length. He only needed 25 feet. Anyways,
yes.
That series says it's limited to 10.2 gigabits for the lengths greater than 50 feet. Right now, all of his videos 1080p and everything is working fine, but he plans to upgrade to 4K, and we're just wondering if we think we'll need to replace this HDMI cable. On a recent episode, it sounded like we favored the optical HDMI cables over the active HDMI cables, so is there a reason to avoid the active HDMI cables, or is he okay? Dude, first of all, you're totally okay. The reason that we normally do the optical is it because it's cheaper? I thought it was because it was cheaper. Isn't that
No, it's because some people need 50 feet or more.
Right. Okay,
that's where that's come in.
It's cheaper, though. It's cheaper at 50 feet or more because if you want to get an active HDMI cable at that length, it gets like stupid expensive. like just buy another receiver.
So probably won't work. So, there's basically, I mean, for me, once you get past about 30, 35 feet, I'm like, I think I'd trust the optical a little more because there's no way you're going to lose bandwidth on an optical.
No.
you might start to lose some bandwidth on anything that's made with copper. So once you get 30, 35 feet, my personal preference,
Right.
if you didn't already buy something that's working, is to go optical. But in your case, 25 feet, I trust Monoprice's specking. They don't lie about their stuff.
Yeah.
And you're well under the length where they said you might start to lose bandwidth.
Right.
So I don't think you need to open your walls or your ceiling. I mean, opening your ceiling isn't too tough because it's a drop ceiling. One reason we like them. But yeah, you shouldn't have to open anything up and replace that cable. You should be fine.
Ryan. Ryan and his wife recently purchased their forever house, and he has permission. Okay, first of all, forever and permission were both in quotes. All right, I'm just going to throw that out there. I didn't write this stuff. Forever house. I mean, it's not going to last forever, Brian. It's
No, but their
everything.
plan is that
I know what their plan
they're not
is.
buying another house after this house. That's the plan.
That's the plan. All right. So, anyways, he's got permission from his wife, I guess, or spouse. I'm not going to judge, to set up a home theater in the family room. It's completely open to the rest of the house. So you should have gotten a different forever house. You should have gotten the one with the home theater room. I'm just going to throw that out there, that maybe you should call this your second to forever house. The next one has a dedicated home theater. But whatever, to each his own. It's completely open to the rest of the house, so he's into the 16,000 cubic foot territory. He understands he will not be pressurizing the setup with base.
No, you will not.
No, he's not. The floor is all tile, but he will be able to put up some acoustic panels to help with reflections, unless you're putting them on the floor. And his seating will be and the seating will be a couch approximately 13 feet from the TV. That should leave roughly 14 feet behind the couch at the back. 4 feet. I don't know why I said that. The picture he provided isn't anything close to his final plans, just to give us an idea of the room. So you can see the couch has to be on the other side of the fireplace, which makes total sense. So that's what he's looking at right there.
But yeah, you can see the tile floor. We can't really see much of the openings, but this is more or less the space that he's working with. Just
tile
a concept.
Almost exactly like my tile in my house. And the fun thing about that tile is you can never tell it's dirty, because it's like it gets like blotchy, and you're like, is it dirty?
Right,
I can't tell. Right? Yeah. It's like it's great. When you have kids. Anyways, he has a total budget of $6,000, but that needs to cover couch, rugs, TV stand, and acoustic panels on top of new AV gear, and he's in no rush. That, sir, is a good thing. He wants the theater completed by early 2018, so he's willing to wait for sales. Are you willing to save more money? Because a couch is like a good chunk of that $6,000. And that's anyways. So he won't have side walls, so he's thinking he'll have to mount his surround speakers on the back wall behind his couch. He also needs to keep the cost down, so he's thinking of maxing out at 5 speakers, since that makes the most sense to him. Do we agree?
I mean, that means a less expensive receiver, obviously fewer speakers that you're purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, if this is your forever house, don't you want to have like Atmos?
But that could be added later.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no reason you couldn't upgrade to 5.2.4 at a later date.
That ain't gonna happen. He's not gonna. It's forever. Once you set it and forget it. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, five speakers is fine. You could also. I mean, he's going to put them behind. That's fine, too. Your couch is not that far from the back wall.
Yeah, 4 feet behind you. I tried to get them a little ways to the outside of the couch.
As much as you can, yeah. I bet that couch is pushed up against the wall, though. So my thought...
Eventually.
my thought...
Sounds like it's a walkway, so I think that's...
Yeah, my thought is, what about little stands on the sides of your couch? What about that? Is that not an option at all? Like, could there not be a little
Maybe he's
stand?
wondering how you get the wire there, though, because you don't have side walls, so you don't have...
Dude, he's got a side wall. What are you talking about? It's
well,
right
maybe
there.
He's setting it up the other way, though. We don't know, because he said that's not the setup. That's just so we have a concept of the room. Maybe he's rotating at 90 degrees and putting the TV over the fireplace or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Right.
Well, you know what? You can still run the wire. There's always a way to run a wire. You can get a wire there. You're going to put a rug. You said rug. Right?
Yes.
Put the rug between where the wire is coming from and to where the wire is going, and then underneath the couch and then up the little stands. You could do that.
All right.
I mean, I'm just saying. Don't shut the door on your options until you have explored them all.
Yeah.
But
the
5 speakers is fine.
Yeah. The only thing I want you to avoid is having those, because they're supposed to be your surround speakers.
Yes.
They're not supposed to be your back speakers. So the only thing I want you to avoid is having them directly behind your couch, like, straight back. Have them out to the sides of your couch, and behind you is fine, but have them out to the sides of your couch. That's all.
So he likes the Ascend Acoustic Sierra 1 speakers. So he's planning to use those as his front, left, right, and center.
Mm-hmm.
He isn't sure what to use as surround speakers, though. Would bipole surround speakers be better for filling this wide open space with sound? And given that he figures the surround speakers will be mounted on the back wall, what would we recommend? I don't think that having a wide open space in any way dictates what kind of surround speaker you need, unless I just can't think of any reason why that would make that much of a difference.
And in fact, with none of the drivers actually aimed at you and no walls around to reflect the sound off of, it's kind of just going off into the distance.
Yeah, I would get direct firing speakers.
Yeah,
like for sure.
And I'd aim them at, even though these are surround speakers, and we're normally saying like, oh, just point the surround speakers at each other so that they're not aimed directly at you. In this case, I'd aim the speakers at you.
I'd aim them right at you.
Yeah.
I would. Okay, if you can get them on speaker stands and like right behind the couch-ish, they're not behind, but right to the side of where your head is, then a little, kind of a little bit behind that, then I would just tilt them in a little bit, tilt them forward just a little bit, so that they're kind of firing right over the back of the couch, right towards your face, sort of thing.
But if they are going to get mounted on that back wall, hey, those full cal birds.
Man, you
How
love
about
those
them?
things.
They're so versatile. They're compact. They look great. And they also sound really good. They actually match with the Sierra speakers really nicely.
Yeah.
So that's an easy recommendation. And they're not breaking the bank either, which is also nice.
Yeah.
So that's my choice for sure.
So he's eventually planning to have 2 subs, but depending on how the rest of the spending goes, dude, seriously, that couch is going to kill your budget. You've got to get the couch out of that $6,000 budget. You literally will have no money for anything else. I've said literally a bunch, and I would like to stop saying it now, so don't let me say it again. But that couch is going to be very, very hard. It's going to be very hard to spend less than $2,000 on a decent, comfortable couch, especially if you're going to want anything that reclines. It suddenly just goes astronomical very, very quickly. So just consider that $6,000 is not a lot of money for what you're trying to do. But that being said, what was the question? I forgot. What are we doing here?
It started on C, talking about subs.
All right. He's planning to eventually have 2 subs, but depending on how the rest of the spending goes, you need to start with just 1. Should he prioritize dual subs over speakers? For example, forego the center and surround speakers so you can afford dual subs right away. Does it make sense to start with 5.1 and expand to 5.2 later? Totally start with 5.1 and expand to 5.2 later. I hate saying that, but in a room this size where bass is just going to just go off into the distance, and your replacement options are going to be almost nil, get 1 big old massive sub. I mean, and it doesn't have to be massive physically, but massive in how it plays. Set it up where then one of the 2 places you can put it, and then see how it sounds. Live with it for a while, and then decide if you really need that second sub. And realizing that even getting that second sub might not make the bass all that much more even anyways.
Yeah, because in a wide open setting like this, there's every chance that you won't actually need the second sub to get fairly uniform bass across your seats, because you're saying you got no sidewalls. That means the standing wave that's occurring from side to side is going to be, so low that you can't even hear it.
Right.
You're probably going to have a standing wave between your front wall and your back wall, but I mean, there's every chance that 1 sub in here will actually sound fine uniformity-wise.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of space.
Get
to
1 bigger sub rather than 2 smaller subs is what I would say.
Or if you get the second sub, you might end up co-locating them. You might end up stacking them or putting them side by side.
You're going to have a Marshall stack.
Not impossible. So, yeah, I agree. Go for 5.1. Go for 5.1. Or if you have to sacrifice something, sacrifice some speakers to get a higher output sub.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be important.
Yeah. So he asks, do we think the HSU VTF2 Mark V would be a decent subwoofer choice? Since everybody these days now has an HP at the end of the ones that put out ridiculous things, I don't see an HP anywhere on this thing as that's high powered. So I'm going to say you should look for something that ends in HP.
Yeah, that's their 12-inch, 250 watt one. I mean, it's a nice sub. It plays down to
that's
20 hertz.
That's a 12-inch, 250 watt sub. That is completely inadequate for what you need.
That's
not
I mean, the
enough.
Price is attractive, right? It's a little over $500. So that's...
No,
but
not going to do it.
That's not the one I would go for.
No.
About the least expensive I might point you at would be Outlaw's Ultra X12. It's actually not that different from the VTF2, but at least it has more power and a larger cabinet.
No, I don't like that one. Keep going.
I'd point you at HSU's, sticking with HSU, but I'd go up a model. I'd go to their VTF3 Mark V HP, 15-inch sub, lots of output.
What's the amp?
Very good value.
What's the amp on that? You know, what's top of that?
You can click on the link
I'll
and
click
find
it
out.
later. I'll click on it. You go. Keep going.
I mean, price-wise for max output, that VTF3 Mark V HP can't really be beat. Now, Power Sound Audio, they have their 15V, but it's a little bit more expensive, and it plays sort of in the same ballpark. If
600 watt amp, it's $800. That HSU. Go on.
Yeah, the VTF3. If you were looking maybe more at size as a consideration, you could consider like an SVS cylinder, a PC2000.
Yeah.
PC2000 won't play as loud as the VTF3 Mark V HP for high power. Won't play as loud, but at least it won't break itself, and it's got the nice footprint, if that's a consideration. But all of those more expensive than the VTF2, but I can't in good faith recommend the VTF2 for you in this room size. Really nice sub, just you got a massive amount of space to deal with.
Okay, so you should, this should be your mindset. This should be your mindset for your subwoofer purchase. I would like to spend under $1,000, but I'm prepared to spend up to $1,200 on a subwoofer. That should be what's in your mind. Your $500 subwoofers just aren't going to cut it.
Nah.
It's just not going to happen. That those are for rooms that you cannot stick that in a 16,000 cubic foot room and expect it to do anything other than gasp for air. It's, you know what? I mean, this is the situation in which you find yourself. And that's why I'm looking at the $6,000 budget and going, yeah, dude, this is going to be tough. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to find deals. Look on Craigslist, get some Google whatever things up, alerts that tell you that the deal is happening on one of these subs that we're talking about. But the bigger the sub that you can get, the lower it plays, the more output
the higher
it has.
The output.
That's what you need. It's just a big room. It's just a big room. So you're really gonna have to think along those lines. So he says since he doesn't have sidewalls, depending on where he ends up placing a subwoofer, it might be a lot easier and cleaner to use a wireless subwoofer kit. Is the Dayton Wavelink okay, or should he pay more for a different connection kit? I don't remember talking about the Dayton Wavelink. The only one I ever remember talking about is the one from Outlaw. Is that the one? I'm clicking on the Dayton.
That's the one I usually recommend. Outlaw's OAW4, but it is more expensive than the Dayton. SVS sells the Dayton, so it can't be too bad. Otherwise, they'd be getting a whole bunch of returns and they'd stop selling it. So
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the form factor of the Dayton because it's USB power, so then you have to get an adapter, USB plug adapter. The OAW4 is just easier because it's just a normal plug. But for the price, Dayton's probably fine. Most of the stuff they use is fine. It's just standard 2.4 gigahertz wireless transmission.
Got 2 reviews on the SVS website, and they're both 4 stars. Works really well. Easy to use transmitter that performs great, but USB power cable could be longer. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's that USB thing.
Whatever. So sure, it's fine. Whatever. I don't care.
I mean, you get it from somewhere, you can return it. That's all I would say. I wouldn't have a problem giving it a try.
There you go. So what AV receiver should he purchase? He wants to make sure that he has the latest HDMI and HDCP versions. He wants since he wants an HDR TV. He wants it to power his Sierra 1 front speakers properly, but since he's maxing out at 5 speakers, there's no need to spend more than $500, right? This dude has got $500 on the mind. What model would we suggest? I don't know. Whatever, I'm gonna say the same thing I said the last time. The whatever is the best version of Odyssey that you can get that powers the number of speakers you need it to power.
Right.
Because he's not doing anything, right? He's not really doing much of anything. He should be able to get an older receiver. He can't because he wants HDCP 2.0.
Yeah, he wants it's the high dynamic range support.
So it's probably, was it going to be a Marantz? Is it going to be a Marantz, the 11 series? Is that going to be it?
I mean, it could, but so Denon has a little bit higher value either way.
Okay.
So if you go with the Denon X2300, remember we had at the beginning of the show, we said Denon UK has said explicitly that thing's getting Dolby Vision. So I'm going to take them at their word. It should be getting Dolby Vision. Doesn't have it right now, but should be getting it. X2300, what is it? 300 and something bucks, $380 or something like that at Accessories for Less right now. $389 at Accessories for Less, under $500. X2300 does everything you need it to do. It would be a completely adequate choice. You could even add 2 more speakers in the future if you wanted to get to Atmos. You know, it can do that if you want to, but it's got multi-Q XT, all the amps that you need built in. It would power things fine. You're only 13 feet away. So yeah, that would be a fine choice. Now, if you go to the X3300W in Denon's lineup, now you're at $650 from Accessories for Less. We blew your $500 target, but you get multi-Q XT32.
That's the one.
You get a full set of pre-outs. So even if you're like, I gots to have me some more headroom and I want an external amp, you can connect an external amp to the X3300. You cannot connect an external amp to the X2300. It's the higher level of Odyssey. How important that is, debatable.
Super important. I think, but that's just me.
See, so over on Marantz, you'd be looking at the SR5011, but that's still multi-Q XT, no XT32. So Denon has the better value. You either get the higher level of Odyssey for a little bit more money, or you save more money and still get XT with the 2300. So those are the ones I would look at.
I would totally go for the one with XT32.
The 3300. Yeah. It's a really nice receiver.
That would be my go-to on that one. In fact, if I was looking for another receiver, I would probably be looking right around there. Maybe the 4300. But
well, you want to do Atmos though, so 4300. Yeah.
This one said Atmos, the 3300.
Yeah, but it's 5.2.2 max.
Oh yeah. I
can't do any more.
I can't do that. As many speakers as I have. That's right. All right. So his room is not light controlled, and there are 5 large windows letting light in. So even though they'll be sitting 13 feet away, a flat panel TV seems like a better choice than a projection setup. Correct?
I'd have to say yes.
Yeah, I think so, too. He's currently leaning towards the Sony. Dude, Sony? Okay, anyways. XPR 65 X750D. All those numbers, I believe that 65 means that 65 inches. But he wants to make sure he's getting a true HDR TV at the best price possible. And Sony was your go-to, was it? Is this a good choice, or should he consider a different TV? Sony's make great TVs. I'm making some offhanded, disparaging remarks, but I don't want you to take them personally at all. It's not because I'm just trying to be entertaining. I'm not trying to be insulting. Sony is pricey. That's just true. You do get good value. I mean, you get good quality. You don't get good value, meaning that for less money, you can get a lot of the same performance that you get from a Sony elsewhere. Vizio is the one that we've been recommending a lot. I'm not sure why you're not looking at like the M series or the P. I can't remember the stupid series. I know M.
There is the P series, but that's more expensive. The M series is the value choice, hands down.
So, I mean, I don't know why you're not looking at that, because if you're looking to save money someplace in this whole thing that you've given us stuff, you're trying to skimp on the receiver, trying to skimp on the subwoofers. And I know the display is the thing that people are like, I need to have a good display. You can get a good display and save money. That is someplace where you can save some money here. You literally cannot save money on a subwoofer. I said literally again. I told you not to let me say that. You can't.
I don't know when it's coming.
You can't say save money on a subwoofer because the dimensions of your room demand a certain amount of output, and to have that output you need a certain level of components, and those components cost a certain amount of money, and they will always require you to spend about $1,000 on a subwoofer. It's just the way it's the way it is, right? If you're in a small room, I could direct you towards a bunch of subwoofers. That'd be just fine for what you're doing. Your room, you cannot. Here we can save you a little bit of money, and we can save it by directing you away from Sony, which, by the way, would be a great TV. I'm sure this is a fantastic TV. I'm being kind. I mean,
he specifically said the X750D, which to me is a bit of an odd choice when you're saying you want really good HDR at the best price possible. It's compatible with HDR10.
Okay.
So it'll take an HDR signal. Does not work with Dolby Vision, and it's really not that bright. I mean, I would call it an HDR compatible TV as opposed to an HDR capable TV.
Okay. So it can accept the signal, but maybe not really recreate it all that well.
It'll take the signal, you'll get an image, but it's really not going to be brighter than standard dynamic range content. It's just, it wasn't really built for that particular model. The M series from Vizio for the same size is $100 less, because the X750D is from last year.
Okay.
So the current M series, way brighter, also does Dolby Vision. I mean, people look at the M series and they're like, oh, it doesn't hit 1,000 nits, but I'm like, for the money, it gets darn close. It gets to like 800 nits. Does Dolby Vision, full array local dimming, has Chromecast built in. Like it checks all the boxes and it's cheaper for the same size. Or you could go up a size to 70 inches for like the same price. So the M series is the easy recommendation here. If you want to go even cheaper and still have really good performance, although still not quite as bright as the M series, it's not actually out yet, but you said you're in no rush, that this doesn't have to get done until 2018. TCL, they have their own P series, the TCL P series. Another really good choice. Their 65-incher is only supposed to be $1,000.
Wow.
Also does Dolby Vision, also full array local dimming, but only hitting around 500, 550 nits or so. So not quite as bright as the Vizio M series. But I mean, I'd go for that Vizio M series all day in this situation.
All right. Well, let us know what you end up doing, dude. And know that you're going to end up having a fantastic home theater once we get this all worked out. So, yeah. And hopefully you'll have something to sit on at the end of it too. I'm not really sure that we're gonna help you get there, but we're gonna try. Carl is using a JVC DLA X750R projector with a Denon AVR X7200 WA AV receiver and the Oppo UDP 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player.
Nice gear.
All right. For each of these three components offers a gazillion setting options. Can we tell him what the best settings are, or where he can find those best settings?
Yes.
Good. I'm looking at this big old long link you got here. That's crazy.
That's the link.
That's a big link. All right. So let's just talk about in general.
Okay.
In general, what you want to have done is you want your video processing to be done at the place where the video processing is done best. Okay. So usually you have a number of places that you can do that. You can have it done at the source, you can have it done at the receiver, or you can have it done at the display, wherever that might be. Okay, so if your display might be a CRT, it might be a projector, it might be HD, it might be SD, it doesn't matter. What matters is that thing can only put a certain number of pixels in a certain configuration, and that's it. It might be 4 to 3, it might be 2.35 to 1 or something like that. It's 16 by 9. It's going to be something, but all it can do is whatever that resolution is. 1080p, that's all it can do. No matter what signal you send it, what's coming out is 1080p. Question is, how good is that going to look when you don't actually send it an actual pixel mapped 1-to-1 1080p signal? Because if you do that, if you send it 720 or 1080i, the TV or the display has to do some processing. It can't do it. It cannot put those things out there because it isn't a 720p display, it's a 1080p display. So that means it has to take the 720 and turn it into 1080. Where does that happen? Best. Now you have a UDP. Mm-hmm. That Oppo certainly does the video processing best out of all these things. I mean, I would guess, based on the fact that they really care about this sort of stuff, and that's why you spent the extra money on it. Plus, you want to make sure that whatever your setting is on UDP is what the actual resolution is of your projector. Once you've done that, then you know that everything coming out is going to go straight through. Just have the receiver pass it through. The display will say, "Hey, I know what that is. I can put that up there. You told me where to put every pixel. I'll put that pixel there. Good to go." So the rest of it, though, we go to the audio side. So if you're
that's more or less his second question.
Okay,
so
well I know that. Let's go. So
yeah,
that's the overall gist of it. Now Rob's going to tell you exactly what you should set this thing at.
Sure. So step number 1, I'll say your AV receiver, because video wise, I don't want your AV receiver touching the signal at all.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
So all of your video processing settings that exist within the AV receiver, turn them off. You just want that thing passing the video signal through unadulterated. That's all you want your AV receiver to do. That's pretty easy.
Right.
For the display, now this is an HDR10 capable projector, but it was like first generation, and the way it was sent out of the factories, it wasn't quite done properly, but JVC figured out the correct settings and has a fix. We will have the link for this at avrant.com, so come to the show notes, we'll have the link. Or if you need it right now, just go to Google, type in JVC projector HDR settings, and it'll take you there. It'll be the first thing that shows up if you search for that. They tell you exactly what your settings should be so that HDR will look correct, because there are a gazillion settings, and you'd have no idea what they ought to be if someone didn't tell you. So this is very valuable. This is directly from JVC. It's from the manufacturer. It's not somebody guessing at this randomly. These are the correct settings. That's what you want to enter for your JVC. On your Oppo, there are a couple of settings that I would recommend changing. You don't really have to. There is a checklist. Watershade.net put out a checklist, but they're basically just showing you what all the settings are and what the default values are. Start from there. If you need to do a factory reset on the Oppo so that everything's at the default settings, start from there because there's very little that you should need to change inside of the Oppo. In fact, if you left everything at default, because pretty much all of them are set to auto, you'd probably be fine. But there's a couple of things that might help you out. Number one, it does give you the option for locking the video output resolution. Instead of having that at auto, you can lock that to something. If you want to lock that to 4K auto, so auto in that case is referring to the frame rate. But if you want to lock it at 4K auto, now all that stuff that Tom talked about, anytime you're upscaling anything, because the JVC accepts a 4K picture, it wobbles a panel to do it, but that's how you get the sharpest image,
right?
Is by sending it a 4K signal. So if you want to lock the Oppo to 4K auto, that's one thing you can do. The important one is in the chroma subsampling. There is an option to output, of course, auto, but you have the options of YCBCR at 444, at 422, or at 420. And in your case, you actually want to set it to 420. All right. Now, at some point, it's going to get brought up to 444, and then it's going to get translated into RGB. That's how displays work. But you actually want to send out of the Oppo a 420 signal because the JVC works best when it gets a 420 signal. The chipsets are a little bit older. Sending it a 444 signal can cause some problems. And what's on your discs, what is actually on your Ultra HD Blu-ray and Blu-ray discs, is a 420 chroma signal. That's what's on the disc. So you're not doing any harm to the signal by sending out 420 from the Oppo. That's one setting I would change. It's going to work a little more smoothly. The last setting I would change is the bit depth of the color. I would lock that at 10. Because same thing, the JVC can technically accept a 12-bit signal, but sometimes it causes some issues. So you have the option of setting it at auto, 12, 10, or 8. I would set it at 10. Everything will work more smoothly that way. So those are the three settings in the Oppo I would do for that specific JVC projector, and then the JVC settings from JVC themselves, and the AVR, get it out of the way, turn everything off. That has to do with video.
So Carl's audio is set up as 7.2.4 configuration using Martin Logan speakers and SVS cylinder sub. Since he has the X7200WA offers so many settings, how can he be certain that everything is set optimally? Is this one of those ones where it's weird in that you have to like go into some weird menu and tell it that you don't have speakers and you do have speakers in order for it to do the 7 point?
If you're doing the setup wizard,
right.
It does have the thing where if you are using upward firing speakers, I don't think he is.
Right.
I think he's using actual speakers on the ceiling. So if you're using actual speakers on the ceiling, it'll be simple because they'll ask you, how many overhead speakers do you have? And you say, I got 4 of them. And where are they? They're top fronts and top rears, or whatever yours happen to be.
Yeah.
Front heights and top middles, whatever it is. So that's easy. It's only if you are using upward firing speakers, you have to tell it, I don't have any overhead speakers, and then it'll bring up the menu that says, how many Dolby upwards firing speakers do you have? It's kind of hidden.
All right. So we'll see if that's the case or not. But This has got Odyssey. I mean, Odyssey, you should be able to just plug in the mic and it'll start you into this configuration process.
I mean, honestly, the setup wizard that Denon has it's good. It's genuinely good, and it will get you to go through Odyssey as part of the whole setup process.
And I would just do that. Now, afterwards, what I usually do after Odyssey does all of this stuff, and I move, I move the microphone around a bunch and do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. I usually go back and change the crossover settings to 80 hertz global.
Yeah.
That's pretty much I do it every single time. There's parts of me that think, well, maybe Odyssey knows best. No, it doesn't. 80 hertz global.
That's not even Odyssey. That's Denon in that case.
That is
when
true.
It comes to crossovers.
I mean, I just know I know I should experiment. I should listen to some sweeps, and have it do the sweep thing, and then see which 80 hertz done. Gotta go. Sorry, I'm watching the movie right now. I ain't got the time to deal with that.
Unless it set one of them to 120 or 150 or something,
Yeah.
in which case I might leave that one there. If it set it higher, if the auto setup set it higher,
Right.
I might leave it there. But if it set anything lower than 80 hertz, I'd probably just bump it to 80 hertz. Life will be easier. And especially if the auto setup sets any of your speakers to large, change them to small and 80 hertz. Right? But yeah, primarily run the auto. Well, do the wizard. Do the setup wizard, because the wizard will step you through it, including doing Odyssey. After you've completed the wizard, the manual settings I would change are any speaker set to large, change them to small. Anything that has a crossover set lower than 80 hertz, change it to 80 hertz.
Right.
And that's about done. Now, the one factor in all of this is making sure that when you are running Odyssey, you have good microphone placement. Because that makes a big difference.
Right.
For that, there's a really good YouTube tutorial that AV Forums put out a while ago. It's really good. Like, there's nothing in there that I say needs correcting. So we'll have the link for that tutorial, or you can just search for AV Forums Odyssey setup tutorial, and it'll come up. That's follow that tutorial for the microphone placement, and you'll get good results from Odyssey. Simple as that.
It's 11 o'clock. Nathan.
I know, but we started so late.
I don't care. It's still 11 o'clock. I've got to get up early. To start, I don't understand why I always have early programs to do, early work to do the day after this podcast. Like, no matter what day we do the podcast the next day, I could have nothing to do all week long. But the day after this podcast, I always have to get up early. Nathan, to start with, he says he understands my advice to stick with 2 subs in diagonally opposite corners rather than changing over to 4 smaller subs, one in each corner. That would probably make more sense for most people. However, he experimented himself and found that in his setup, having his 2 rhythmic F15 HP subs at the midpoints of his 2 sidewalls delivered considerably more even and uniform bass than putting those same subs in diagonally opposite corners. He can't use that mid-wall placement, though, because it blocks his walkways. That's how he landed on the idea of 4 subs in 4 corners. And if they're physically smaller without giving them ascension, so much the better. So Rob suggested 4 of the rhythmic L12 sealed 12-inch subwoofers. Should he have even the tiniest bit of concern that when it comes to their output capabilities in his closed 12-foot by 17-foot by 18-foot room? And the answer is no. Don't be ridiculous. That's a tiny room.
8-foot room.
Yeah, an 8-foot room.
But just to put the numbers right in your mind, Rhythmic claims that it'll put out 97 dB max output. From the L12, that's at 20 hertz. Now, you might be going, okay, it's sealed 12-inch. That isn't unreasonable because SVS's SB12 NSD, which has since been replaced by the 2000, but the SB12 NSD was measured over at database.com, and they got about 96 decibels out of that thing. So Rhythmic claiming that they can get somewhere in the vicinity of 97 dB is not out of the question.
Right.
Not at all for that design. Now, if you corner load a subwoofer, you're going to get about 12 decibels more output from the boundary reinforcement. And then you're going to have 4 of them. So if you went from 1 to 2, you get 3 dB more output. From 2 to 4, you get another 3 dB. So add 6. So you got 18 decibels more output than what this thing can do in a wide open field all by itself.
Right.
97 plus 18 is 115.
That's a lot of output.
And that's sustained.
Right. That's
not even
peaks.
peak.
Yeah.
That's sustained. So you can hit full reference volume.
Yes.
You will have no problem.
The back of his room has a riser for his second row of seats, so his 2 rear corner subs will be 8 inches higher than his 2 front corner subs. He'd be perfectly fine with making stands for the 2 front corner subs, so they'll all be at the same height. Will this make any difference? No.
It ought not to.
I can't 8 inches, I can't imagine that it would make any audible difference whatsoever. I think your subs would look silly. I'm gonna throw that out there too. You're gonna raise up those subs to 8 inches. You're gonna be like, what's that? What's going on with that over there? Oh well, I want the subs to be at the same height, and everybody's gonna look at you like a crazy person. And honestly, you might be a crazy person if you do that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
If it really bothers you psychologically, because I think psychologically you may hear a difference, but physically there's no difference. But psychologically you may hear a difference, and if it does, go ahead and raise them up. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt anything.
No.
But no, I mean, you'd have to get to anything below 125 hertz can't can't really possibly be changed by 8 inches difference. Like not even theoretically possible.
Isn't 20 hertz wave something like 40 feet long or something like
Oh,
that?
a 20 hertz wave is 55 feet
55.
long.
All right, that was close. That's crazy. Yeah, so 8 inches it really doesn't matter at all.
No.
Right. Kenny's setup is a loft that is 25 feet long, 15 feet wide, and completely open via the staircase. He's running a 2.1 setup that includes a pair of ZAF Audio Waveguide TMM speakers that he built himself, plus a 12-inch Dayton reference subwoofer with a Behringer feedback destroyer that he programmed using RummyQ Wizard. Dayton reference subwoofers probably built himself too, right? Am I right about that?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly. Entirely possible.
Anyway, he mostly cares about music, and although he does watching TV and movies, and as well, although he does enjoy watching TV and movies as well, on his 65-inch Vizio M series that he bought thanks to our recommendation. Look at that. There we go. Other guy. He's found himself primarily using only one source these days, though, is NVIDIA Shield TV, which pulls content from his network-attached storage using Plex. To power his speakers, he's been using a Yamaha integrated amp, but it doesn't have any HDMI inputs. So he connected the Shield directly to the TV and then used the TV's optical output to send the audio back to the Yamaha. Things don't seem to sound as good, though, and he's been considering replacing his Yamaha anyway. So he's looking at a Denon X3300W or a Marantz SR5011 from Accessories for Less, but since he's only using 2.1, it sort of feels like their feature sets are overkill. On top of that, he's a bit concerned about all the HDMI and HDCP issues. Okay.
Just in general.
I got that, but
they exist, and that they can't blame you there. That's true.
You
hear about all this nonsense.
That's true. So he's tempted to run video directly to his TV, and then he uses Shield's USB output to send his audio to a stereo system. Seems overly complicated, but okay. The Outlaw Audio RR2160 stereo receiver could work, or you go with the full analog separates with an Emotiva X SP1 plus an amp with a USB DAC in between. For the best possible music playback quality, what should he go for? Will Odyssey be a big enough benefit to justify wasting all of the surround sound features and extra built-in amps? Or will analog bass management actually sound better while avoiding all the HDMI related headaches? And how different is the sound between AV receivers and analog separates really? All right, this whole idea that having extra stuff inside your the box that you're not going to use is somehow detrimental to the things that you do use is flawed on its face. If you just look at it and say, I've got a car, and this happens all the time, right? I've got a car that's automatic. It's an automatic transmission. It's got park, it's got reverse, it's got neutral, it's got drive, and it's got a bunch of stuff I never use. Is that stuff I'm never using in some way making my drive not work as well? Everybody would look at you like, did you just seriously ask that question out loud? I mean, of course it doesn't make any difference. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there not doing anything. It's not bothering you. Why would you care that's there? But it's there inside my car, and I'm not using it. Therefore, it could be giving me headaches. No, it really can't. Same thing here with these receivers. Yes, they have a lot of stuff you're never going to use. Yes, a lot of times when you use AV receivers and you're doing all sorts of weird things with weird stuff, HDMI can give you some headaches. It can happen. You are literally having the simplest possible setup for HDMI. I mean, you're taking a source, which is a computer, you're plugging it into an AV receiver, and you're taking that AV receiver and plugging it into the TV. That's basic. It can totally do that. Will you have HDMI issues? Pretty sure you're not going to have HDMI. I can never, you never say you're not going to have HDMI issues because they pop up all over the place. But that being said,
this signal chain, you really should.
I mean, you would really have to try. You would really have to try. You would have to do some sort of weird setting in your NVIDIA Shield that your receiver understands but your TV doesn't, or your TV understands but your receiver doesn't. And, it's like, this resolution that I can't. I mean, I can't imagine that you would have a problem with HDMI. The benefits of using a receiver, I think, so far outweigh the potential negatives of
like what if you do get a second source?
I know, right. What if, not only that, what if you want to add some speakers? What if you
want to put a video game system on there?
What if you want a base management that doesn't just do a crossover? Because believe me, that's all these analog sources can do. Their base management is all in the analog domain, and it's mostly just I can cross things over, and I can maybe you could use my parent. It's very little they can do. Odyssey is totally worth it. To me, it's been one of the greatest additions to my home theater of all the different things that I've done. I just think that Odyssey has been a fantastic benefit. It is
which, by the way, in those models that you mentioned, can also be tuned to taste, even if you don't like what it does automatically, because you can add the app.
Right.
The app is only $20.
Yeah.
And then you can manually contour and shape it like anything you want. Yeah. So that's pretty powerful.
I don't know that, it's like I have a car that have 7, 8 seats in it. I don't know how many, 6, 8 seats in it. I have 8 seats in my car. I can see 8 people in my car. I almost never put anything more than 5. Are those extra 3 seats wasted? Well, even if I never put anybody in those 3 seats, I still use the 5 that I've got, and I'm perfectly happy with having those 5. The fact that you never use these other things, is it wasting it? I really don't think it is, because it's not what you're buying it for. You're buying it for what you need it to do, and just because it comes with a bunch of stuff you don't need doesn't mean you still don't need those things that it does. And Odyssey is one of those things that you probably need.
Now, I'm looking at it a little bit different way, which is that, first of all, I would go for the X3300 in your case, because that's getting you the highest level of Odyssey,
Amen.
Whereas the SR5011 is a step down.
Yeah.
So go for the X3300W. Now, that, compared to the Outlaw that you mentioned, and definitely compared to the Emotiva combo that you mentioned, it's the cheapest. So it's the cheapest. Now, if I told you the X3300W is a really good stereo receiver, and it's the least expensive, would there be any objections to that? You go, no, that sounds fine. But as soon as I say, well, it also has 5 additional amps in case you ever want to add other speakers, now it's no good?
Yeah, right.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
No. Just think, if it were more expensive, then I might go, oh, well, maybe you're paying more to get extra amps that you're never going to use. But it's actually the least expensive one, and you get more? So, yeah, it's a really good stereo receiver. If you don't like Odyssey, you can turn it off. If you do like Odyssey, it has it. These other ones don't. If you want to use Odyssey to manually change the target curve, you can do that, which you can't do with these other ones. You need another external device on top.
Right.
So everything, the boxes are checked for that X3300W.
Right.
That's what I would recommend to you.
There you go. Yes, I know we have a bunch of other questions, but we're going to stop. I have got to go to bed. So we have, and I got to do the podcast from last week tonight. So and
yes.
The podcast from this week tonight. So we have Adam, Byron, Bobby, Fred, Eric, who I love the way you spell your name, Eric, by the way. I think that's Eric, whatever. That's not that many. And then we've got additional questions on top of that for next week's setup as well. So if you haven't heard your name or whatever, sorry, but we will get to you next week. I've got to go to bed. I really super do. Let's thank our listeners of the week once again. We're going to thank John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob. John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob for their donations. They went to www.avrant.com and left us a PayPal donation through our Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. So thank you, John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, Bob.
Yes, John, Jason, Kenny, Adam, and Bob, thank you all very much for those donations.
It goes. And I'm also going to thank Bob and Nathan for talking us up to the various manufacturers. So thank you very much, Bob and Nathan.
Yeah, Bob, Nathan, thanks so much for talking us up. Congratulations on your purchases. Nice receiver from Accessories for Less for Bob. And, Nathan, we were just talking about potentially 4 more subwoofers from Rhythmic. So there you go.
There you go. All right. If you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is send it to us at question@avrant.com. You can leave a comment on www.avrant.com, facebook.com/avrantpodcast, and youtube.com/c/avrant. There's also more contact information at the beginning of the podcast if you want. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.